Hey everybody, welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about how to attract, engage, and retain your clients with digital marketing. My name is Brandon Brashears, and I hope that you're having a wonderful day. In today's podcast, we are going to be talking to Dr. Karen Bolten. She is at The Business Vet on Instagram. She does really great content on Instagram. Definitely go check it out if you haven't done so already. We're going to jump into exactly what we'll cover here in today's interview. It's full of gold, so be sure to listen all the way through to the end. Before we begin, I want to mention a few things. First, if you haven't done so already, be sure to join the Facebook group, The Veterinary Marketing Nerds. If you go to facebook.com/groups/The Veterinary Marketing Nerds, you can head on over there, ask questions, get help with anything. It's a great place to just have extra resources, and it's completely free. The other thing that I want to mention too is that I've started what I call my super secret email list, and there's actually no way to sign up for this on a forum. If you want to be on this list, just send me an email at brandon@veterinarymarketingpodcast.com, and I can send you on to that email list. I go really in-depth into marketing topics, and it's going to be a very nerdy list. So if you want to be like really in-depth into your marketing, it's not stuff that is typical that I post. It's a lot more just really, really into the weeds of things. So be sure to send me an email, brandon@veterinarymarketingpodcast.com. And if you want to join, that's also free. So if you have any other questions, comments, or need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. And so let's jump into today's episode. Today we're talking to Dr. Karen Bolten. She has a great story. We cover how she got into more of the business side of veterinary medicine. Really, really interesting story. And she's just been doing some awesome research and work when it comes to Instagram. I'd say it's research because she just is so methodically going through and testing all of these things that she's been learning. So you can see her Instagram. It's at The Business Vet. And you can see the content that she posts. It's really helpful kind of tutorial slide posts, really good stories, and just really applicable, useful tips and tricks that you can use to grow your Instagram. And I think that Instagram is just more important than ever before, just because you have a lot, I think, better engagement. It depends on your demographics and things, and we cover that there. But I think it's a great episode full of gold. Be sure to listen all the way through, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. All right, so today on the podcast, we have Dr. Karen Bolten. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us. I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on here and have a conversation with us today.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So can you just give people a background on how you got into the veterinary medicine and kind of how you got into marketing too? Just kind of a quick backstory on that for people who aren't familiar with your work, and kind of how you got into this crazy industry, and obviously how you've kind of morphed into all things business and veterinary medicine.
Yeah, the industry is definitely crazy. I will say that. So I graduated from vet school in 2019, but that's not true. 2009. So it's been over a decade now. And it was a terrible time to graduate, right in the middle of the Great Recession. And even worse, because I worked on a luxury animal, horses. So when I left vet school, I went into an internship, and I finished that in 2010, which was still a terrible time to look for a job on luxury animals. And at that point, everyone was still firing their equine vets just because they didn't have any employment for them, even at the really big practices. So I was lucky enough to find a job down in South Carolina, and I'm still there now. And the first 2 years, I worked in what was considered it was a satellite clinic, and it had just recently been purchased by the man who owned it. And I was it was a little bit of a rough start. And I say that because I was kind of plopped down in the middle of nowhere all by myself. It wasn't really what I was expecting. And I had a tough time of it. I'll just leave it at that. But after 2 years, I asked my boss if I could go ahead and buy the clinic, which he was totally fine with, which I probably should have taken as a red flag. But but I didn't see it as that. I thought it was just a very easy transition. But So I bought mainly just the phone number and some of the supplies from him. I started it over as my own completely separate business entity. I just wanted to start everything fresh. And so I started my own business. So excited. It was so fun at the beginning, brand new. I was going to do everything the way I wanted. I was going to buy all this cool stuff. And very quickly I started learning, it's maybe not so fun. You start having problems and so I never lost the love for ownership, but then reality kicks in very quickly. And so I owned the business for 8 years before I sold it. But during that time, the reason why I chose to switch gears is that I think I became very frustrated with kind of getting stuck because of the type of practice I was in. It was, well, first we were equine, but we kind of switched over to large animal just because of the demand. Mm-hmm. And we were large animal ambulatory, which is very tough as it is just to make a decent profit. But also our area is low to moderate income, which makes it even harder. And I just felt like there wasn't a lot of support for a practice like ours, like from the outside. We kind of felt very, very on our own. There wasn't a lot of education about running a business like ours. And in the end, it's just like you're figuring it all out on your own. And I was stupid and I didn't know anything about business. And in hindsight, I was doing so much wrong. I mean, everything I was doing wrong. I mean, just completely everything. And it took me a while to figure out. I just kind of felt uneasy for a few years, and I didn't really know what to do with myself. And I tried a few things. I did acupuncture, and that didn't really solve the uneasiness. And eventually I decided I wanted to do business, and I took a few classes, and that felt right. And then I decided I wanted to go ahead and go to business school full time, but go ahead and leave practice because I kind of had lost interest in practice at that time. I just really wanted to do business, and I wanted to help other veterinary professionals understand how much we're screwing up our businesses, to be honest, because we really are. And it was the right choice. It really was the right choice to leave practice. And I really am interested in helping others understand the right way to do things and also understand how wrong we're doing things. And that is not a judgment. I mean, I was doing it all wrong too. But it's so black and white now how I see things and how badly I was doing things before.
Well,
so that's kind of how I got to where I am now.
That's pretty amazing. So first off, I think it's super amazing that you could, number one, recognize that you needed to take a break from practice, because I see this all the time with talking to vets and things. If they're burned out or they're not loving practice anymore, they just feel so invested into it that they can't really take the step away because of the opportunity cost of I've just come too far to turn back now type of a thing. So,
I think it's okay. I mean, it was a part of my life. I don't think what I did then, it's not like, you quit and that everything that you learned then goes to waste. I mean, everything that I learned then, I'm still using that 100%. Now. Even if I completely switched professions, it's not like the skills and the tools that I learned then would be lost. I think it's okay, despite what my family members say.
That's a great way to look at it. So that's really cool. And I think too that just it makes sense. I mean, I went to school for marketing, and there was only 2 marketing courses in the entire degree. It was in advertising, and it's what am I going to school for?
Quite honestly, I'm running into that same problem right now, to be honest. It's a little frustrating.
So that's super. I mean, to expect that vets come out of vet school being able to run a business that's extremely complicated. There's probably few businesses that are more complicated than running a vet practice. So, I mean, it's a huge undertaking, and I'm sure you learned so much. And then, going back to school for, business, super interesting. but the thing that I really wanted to talk to you about is I love your Instagram page and the content that you're putting out there all the time.
Thank you.
So consistent, so consistently, just amazing. So if you haven't followed,
thank you.
It's at The Business Vet. Be sure to follow, Dr. Bolten over here. So let's talk about Instagram, because I think that I actually think Instagram is a lot more effective and a lot better than Facebook, just from a distribution standpoint. And also, I think the Facebook product is probably on the decline. So like when we talk about Facebook or Instagram, like Facebook is a sinking ship that's on fire, and Instagram is the lifeboat holding up, the Facebook brand, in my opinion. But like, what are some of the things that, you just are posting so much great content. When it comes to Instagram for a veterinary practice, what do you think practices should be thinking about? And do you think that practices should focus their main kind of Facebook strategy to Instagram? I know those are kind of like two major discussion points, but what do you think about that?
I'm taking notes here so I don't forget. So many things to think about. Okay. So number one, I agree with you about Facebook. So I used to be Facebook was my home. And when I first started with the clinic that I was working at, I knew everything about Facebook. I worked so hard to grow our presence on Facebook, to the point when I guess about when I was working to sell my practice, we had the largest presence for, I think it was actually any veterinary practice, in our little corner of the state on Facebook. I was so proud of that. And I actually got off of Facebook for a few years, and I was just so burned out with clients, and it just, I don't know. But when I got back on it, it could just completely change. Can you hear me, Brandon?
Yep, I can hear you. Yep.
Okay,
I got
sorry.
you.
All of a sudden it got very quiet.
No
okay, all right. So when I got back on Facebook, things had completely changed. And the change that I hate the most on there is that you have to work so hard to, number one, get followers. Whereas before, you could put out good content, even really not that good content, and get followers. The people that your actual clients could find you, and you could get them to follow your account. That's the whole point of social media. And now you have to kill yourself to get organic followers now.
Definitely.
And number two, even on Facebook, when you have those followers that you got organically, they're not seeing your content anymore. And this is my problem with Facebook now. And it's completely different than what it used to be. So I would agree with you. I'm not a fan of Facebook anymore. And everything is just so much more complicated on there than it used to be. And I've had a hard time just forcing myself to go and learn it all. So once I started getting into Instagram, it's all so much simpler. I just feel like it's much less toxic over there. And anyone who spends any time on Facebook, I think you understand what I mean by toxic. But so in terms of Instagram, if you haven't made the leap over there yet, it can seem a little bit intimidating, but I would encourage you to do that. The thing about using Instagram for your clients, though, is that you do need to understand the demographics are a little bit different. So that really has to do with the age. So the age group on Facebook is a little bit older than the age group on Instagram. So my age group, which I'm at the upper end of the millennial group, it's my age group and downwards that is more on Instagram, whereas on Facebook, it's I guess my age and upwards that's on Facebook. So when it comes to your practice, you need to understand who your target audience is. And that's really important when you're talking about marketing, when you're doing ads like what you do, Brandon. And it's a waste of time and money if for instance, where I live, it's a lot of senior citizens. So if you're spending a lot of time and money on Instagram and your target market is senior citizens, that would be a waste of time and money. I would not advise that. So that's a big thing. And you had another question in between that I think
I think that is a good, real quick point, though. I mean, I think that's probably the only exception is if you're trying to target senior citizens, pretty much Instagram is not the place for that. But I think for like almost everybody else, it seems like it is really starting to pick up kind of all of the slack that Facebook is throwing out. Just because, I mean, unless you want to go fight on politics, like Facebook's the the place to throw down. But other than that, so. I think in the past, people kind of took Facebook and they pushed their Facebook posts over to Instagram. So there was like that kind of overlap that went that direction.
Yeah.
Do you think that it makes
I think it's going the other way now
to focus and have the focus, especially from an organic standpoint, because you're not getting any on Facebook anyways. But like, do you think that pushing from Instagram to Facebook is kind of a better way nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that's what I'm doing. I can't speak for everyone else, but in terms of sharing my content, like I'm quite honestly, I'm very lazy on Facebook at this point, and I'm just automatically sharing my posts from Instagram to Facebook. And I don't feel like I do any better by doing that versus if I go onto Facebook and just like actually post directly on Facebook. So I do think it is going the opposite way now. And I think there's a lot of negative feelings about Facebook. And I don't feel like there's a lot of negative feelings about Instagram, even though they're, like you said, they're the same company. But I think everything that you said before is correct. And I think Instagram is going upwards in terms of sentiment. So it'll just be interesting to see how some of the older demographics start moving. But if they start going over to Instagram, but I do think the shift is probably going in that direction.
Definitely.
We'll see.
And I think too, yesterday, I don't know if you heard, did you hear that Facebook released a new feature called Bolten? Did you hear about that? See, that's the thing. I mean, you're in digital marketing, and I only found out about it because I follow Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook, and he launched in his audio product, Audio Room, which is like a competitor with Clubhouse. Yeah. And this new product that they launched, which has Malcolm Gladwell and a few other authors that are kind of like big named authors, he's launched this product, and it just is a copy of another program called Substack. And so it's like they're not innovating anymore. It just is constant, like, okay, somebody has a cool feature, I'm going to add that to Facebook. And then there's no organic reach, so it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, so that's the problem. That's the whole problem with Facebook. You can't connect with the people that you want to connect with.
Exactly. So when we're talking about Instagram, I think that it is huge in potential for local, actual client driving, like, into your practice. What are some of the things that you think are really, really important when it comes to making sure that you're actually hitting the right target demographics and the right people in your space?
So I think just using it, period. I mean, there's all these statistics about how often you should be posting on Instagram and on Facebook. And I think they're unrealistic for most people, whether they say you should be posting once a day or twice a day. I live with anxiety. I'm very straightforward about that. Right now, I'm trying to challenge myself to post once a day. And I've been doing that for a couple weeks. And that is because I am on summer break. This is my challenge for the summer. I could not do this while I was in class. I would be losing it. I could not be doing this while I was working full time. That is, quite honestly, like, unless this is your job or you have someone who's in your clinic doing this for you, like as a job description, that is an unrealistic thing to be putting out one post a day with like good content for a normal person. So I think you need to start little and work your way up from there. The more I post, it's also getting easier to come up with content because you start getting like templates made. You start like your design and your writing. It starts getting faster, I guess. But I think it gets a little bit overwhelming when you read what you quote unquote should be doing versus what you are doing, and then you just don't do anything. Sure. So first of all, just start doing something and do that something consistently. Because if you're not doing anything, no one's going to see you. Yep. So just keep in mind that you just have to start your marketing process. Another thing that I don't know if I just didn't consider it, or I think I just thought I could go organic all the way, but you do need to set aside money for your marketing efforts. And there was one percentage that I saw. I cannot find it again. It was on the Small Business Administration's website, but they've changed their website, and I cannot find this number again. It said for new businesses, new small businesses, I think it was in their first year of practice or first year of opening for a small business, that you should be putting aside 30% of your budget for marketing, which like it blew me away. And it kind of made sense because like when you first start out, like no one knows who you are. So you have to be putting like tons of money into your marketing. And I'm sure that like it completely depends on what field you're in, but
Definitely.
like, is that number right for vets? I don't know. But I always remember that number.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense though. And I think that just in general, vets, there's almost no practice that's doing that. Like even corporate groups, like nobody is doing that. Except for maybe, I mean, if you include that budget with like let's say a marketing staff person, then that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're including the number in there. But yeah, that would be awesome.
I think
you'd be successful if you planned that way though. Like that would be a good approach to have, I think.
But I think back to like, what if I opened a vet practice in like my first month or two when I had no clients and my budget's like $1,000, $2,000. Like I'm making no money. If I had put 30% of that into marketing, like it kind of makes sense there though. You know, once your budget gets bigger, like your marketing budget percentage goes down. But when I think about what I did, you know what my percentage I put towards marketing was? It was 0. And I wonder how many other clinics are doing that when they should be putting a percentage above 0 towards marketing.
Definitely.
So
I would bet it's about 80%, because that would be my guess.
But I you know, when money is tight, it's hard to make that percentage, hard to explain making that above 0. But once you start like creeping up a little bit, more money is going to start coming in, and then you can make your budget a little bit higher, and more money will come in, and a little bit higher, and more, you know, which I'm sure no one wants more business right this second. In the long run, when people are less exhausted, you know, post-COVID, you know, these things can happen. But
definitely.
And of course, you are into ads, and that money should definitely be going towards ads, social media ads. And that is someplace else where I went wrong. I was giving out like brochures, like physical brochures. I was mailing them to people. I was sticking them in mailboxes, which you're not allowed to do legally. And those like didn't pay off at all. And they're very expensive. They were like $2 or $3 each to get them printed. And when I showed up to those houses like on emergencies and things like that, and they asked them like, "Oh, did you see my brochure that I sent to you?" They're like, "What?" I don't think a single one of those ever gained any business. And then, you know, I'm sure you can rattle off the return on investment for the social media ads, but definitely it's way better for social media. Definitely. So those are probably some of the places where I would definitely start. But some of the free things that you can do on social media is starting to use I think one of the things where I went the most wrong in the past was I was not using the right words to talk to my clients. And like, I think since I have an equine background, well, I just used it right there. I have an equine background, and I think I would assume that like horse clients are more okay with the word equine, just because, you know, a lot of them, you know, horse clients are a certain way, and they interact with medical things a lot more. They're a little bit more overbearing with their medical care. I'll just put that out there.
Yeah.
But I think they're just more familiar in general with medical words. And as I've gone through my hashtag project that I'm working on right now, I have actually been very surprised with equine not being more popular than it is. And like in the small animal species, it's what I'm expecting it to be. People are using the words cat and dog versus feline and canine.
Yeah,
but it's actually yeah, it's shocked me though that the horse owners are using the word horse almost at the same level as the small animal clients. And so I was using completely the wrong terminology. And yeah, so there's just a lot of hindsight with what I was doing.
Less clinical. I think that's really important too. And I think too, for things like x-rays, instead of radiographs and,
yeah. Lauren Smith has a whole thing on x-rays. She started off that whole thing, and I refer back to that a lot. I was a radiograph person, and like I always felt like I should teach them the word radiograph. If they don't understand the word radiograph, like they should learn things. And now I'm x-ray. I mean, they don't understand.
Yeah. I don't actually know the difference.
You're absolutely right.
In that either, except for that I use the word, I use radiographs exclusively when I'm talking to veterinarians because like they don't like the word x-rays. So that's the distinction there. So it depends on your target market, which I think makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about your hashtag project that you're working on, which I think is really cool. So with hashtags, and I mean, just quick rundown on hashtags and their importance when it comes to Instagram and why it is a huge part of Instagram. What is that?
Yeah, so this is probably I was when I first moved over to Instagram, was the thing that I think I was most overwhelmed with trying out. Like I didn't understand hashtags. Like it was a big learning curve, I think. There's a commercial on TV. I think it's for Progressive, and it's I don't know if you've seen them. It's How Not to Become Your Parents. They have a whole series of them.
It is hilarious.
They're really funny.
I love it.
There's one that it's like, I use the Progressive How to Find a Quote tool. Does that mean I'm hashtagging? That's pretty much what I felt like. But basically what the hashtags are is they're a way to index your post or your photos, whichever one you want to refer to. And I think the first way I thought to compare these to something else was if you used to go to libraries that use the little, index cards to categorize books. That's kind of how hashtags work. So like there's an index card for hashtag dog, and then that would list all the posts that are about a dog. So that was kind of like the first way I thought about it. But if you are too young for that description, which I thought that maybe some people don't remember that, it basically works the same way that Google works. So Google does this thing, like, the question is like, how does Google know where everything exists? They index websites and topics on websites by this thing called a web crawler, and it goes and it incrementally crawls a website. So if my website's about veterinary medicine or marketing or management, it incrementally crawls on my websites and finds all the topics and stuff, and puts that in their little group of topics. But then they have like a grouping of all those topics. And then when you search for like veterinary marketing, that's how my website comes up. So Instagram is actually becoming one of the biggest search engines on the internet. So it's basically starting to rank up there like Google. And that's why you want to use hashtags on your pictures, so that you can be found just like if someone used Google. And so that's basically how they're working. Yeah,
very cool.
That's the best way I can describe
it. That's a good description, and I think young people know how to use libraries too. Just saying. So,
do they remember the old card system though? Everything's digital now.
I think a lot of the old libraries. I mean, most libraries still have card systems, just because it's so expensive.
Do they really?
Like last time I went to a library, which was a couple years ago with my daughter, it still had the card system in it, so it's like pretty cool. But
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
I think we should hold on to that for sure. But so with hashtags, do you think having a core set of hashtags that you use repeatedly, or do you make it more of a mixture of like some core kind of larger search volume, or do you have a general approach to that? That's a pretty, I'm sure, complicated question. Because
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
So the biggest thing is that Instagram will penalize you if you use the same hashtags over and over and over again. So the first suggestion is just to make sure that you mix it up from post to post at least a little bit. So if you have, like, for instance, if you have one hashtag that you really like, just make sure you don't use it on every single post, because they will start ranking you a little bit lower on people's walls. So there are many different suggestions on strategies to use hashtags. So it's, first of all, it is complicated, but I'm actually going through a lot of experimentation right now, especially since I'm doing this hashtag generator. The reason why I'm having difficulty answering this, I'm learning a ton now that I've found all these hashtags, and I'm also using this service that actually is showing me which one of these hashtags are working for me. So I'm learning things at a much deeper level than I ever knew before. So I'll tell you what I am learning. So first of all, one of the most popular strategies, I will tell you that, and then I'll tell you what I've learned in comparison to that strategy. So the strategy that a lot of people use is based on the volume of usage per hashtag. So for instance, like the hashtag VetMed is a very, very, very popular veterinary medicine one. And it's been used, I think its usage is like 700,000 or something. It's a huge veterinary medicine hashtag. So that would be one that would be considered a high competition hashtag. So what people tend to say is use only a very few high competition hashtags, use more of the medium competition and low competition hashtags. The cutoff for numbers it's kind of more of an art. But what a general recommendation is for the high competition, don't use any that are over 200,000. And the lower cutoff for the high competition is probably, sorry, I gave you the wrong number there. So high competition is over 200,000. So that's when you start getting into like the ones that you're not going to be able to be found as much. But if you get placed very high on those pages, like the top post, you'll get a lot of interaction. So for the medium competition, those hashtags will fall between 10,000 to 200,000. You're going to be more competitive in that category, more likely to be seen. The low competition is under 10,000. So you want to be using more of the medium and low competition. With that said, in veterinary medicine, we don't have a lot of the high competition hashtags. So I would say I probably wouldn't be using many that are over 100,000. So I know that was a lot of numbers that I just threw out.
I think that's really helpful, though.
But
it's like long tail SEO versus short tail, right? Where if you're trying to rank for example, like dogs as a keyword, like that's going to be impossible because it's just so much search.
No.
That, right? And same thing with like Instagram. If you post something in hashtag dogs, like it's probably not even beneficial because there's probably like 10,000 posts per minute that are getting that same hashtag. And so it's just going to be lost in the sea of kind of competition in general. So
in terms of specific hashtags, what I absolutely have realized now. So what I used to use, and now when I look at other people's posts and I see them using, so people like to use vetmen, veterinary medicine, veterinarians, like there's very common tags that people like to use that are just very general to veterinary medicine. Mm-hmm. Those are the big tags that are in that high competition, or they're in the medium competition, but like ranking quite far up there. those are the bad tags that really none of us should be using. You are not like, it is very rare that you're going to get any attention from those. What I'm finding on my account, and especially because I'm using this service that is showing me which hashtags are working, I'm doing well probably at the ones that are at like 40,000 and below. So that has been really interesting. And even like maybe 20,000 and below. And every now and then I'll hit one a bit higher. And when I do, it's useful, but it's not common.
Definitely makes sense.
Now that I've found like this huge stash, now I know which ones those are.
Definitely.
So,
I think that's really insanely important and super insightful. So I think that, targeting and figuring out, I guess, doing research, kind of stepping back and trying to figure out which ones you should be targeting, like if you're, let's say you do neurology, for example, and you are trying to target French Bulldog owners, like that, there's a niche that I'm sure has all kinds of hashtags that have different levels of competition.
I can tell you there is, because I've got a Frenchie.
Exactly. And they always have
those are hard,
issues, right? And so just, thinking about things. So there's probably definitely going to be a balance of like getting popularity and trying to get, numbers, while at the same time you want to just be getting the right groups of people. And I think that's, I think there's a lot of overlap. When we're targeting ads for people, there might not be a huge volume for a specific keyword or key phrase, but, making sure that you're targeting just the lowest hanging fruit. Like you don't want just everybody coming in. You know the best kinds of people to target. And so it's kind of pretty similar is what I'm hearing from like, it's quality over quantity. Because if you go for those really high number hashtags, it's you kind of hit this line where if you cross that line, you're not going to get any. Whereas if you go for the lower quantity ones, you won't get a ton of exposure, but you'll at least get people seeing it. That makes sense.
Everyone wants to go for the big ones, of course, but if you get no exposure at those, it was completely worthless.
Totally. So, beyond that, I mean, practices are local. So how do you kind of suggest that practices get local clients?
Yeah.
Because that's always the issue there.
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways to do that. So first of all, there's the location tags. And I think I've got an actual stat on that. Let me go find it. Yes. Okay. So for location tags, so first of all, just in general, if you use the location tags, which if you look at a picture, that's the little tag right above the picture. You can tag either just your, like the actual, your vet clinic, or you can tag like the city or the neighborhood. I mean, there's many different ways to use. And then I actually have a post about how you can use location tags. So in general, just location will increase the visibility for your business. But the stat associated with that is it will give you 79% more engagement by using those location tags. So I would highly encourage you, every single post, use a location tag. Even if you can't even, if it's not even seemingly a location specific post, I don't necessarily want people to see any of my posts. I just use these crazy random locations. So if you want to know what that means, go see my post.
I got a push notification and it said Karen Bolten is at, and it was like, I can't remember, but it was a weird location.
Yeah, my friend asked me if I was in Australia the other day.
I was like, wow. It gave me a push notification though on my phone, which was pretty impressive. So it's like, wow, that's a pretty cool strategy. So
I stole that from someone else that I follow. It was an Opossum account. She's really good at it, but she's always finding these really funny locations. But it's better than using no location. So, but yeah, if you have a brick and mortar though, there's no excuse for it. But you can do things like if there's a dog park by you, you should absolutely be tagging the dog park, because if someone clicks on that location, then they'll be seeing your veterinary clinic.
Absolutely.
But if there's, probably shouldn't be. I wouldn't tag pet stores. I don't know. That's up to you, but I feel like that's kind of stepping on some toes. But public places that are associated with animals, I think that's fair game. But
totally agree. So smart.
Well, thank you. No, I'm kidding. The other thing you can be doing is using hashtags associated with your location. So there's all kinds of different versions of that. So you could do your hashtag city, the hashtag neighborhood, and then there's all kinds of hashtags that are like hashtag. I have a friend who does acupuncture in the DC area, so she has like hashtag dogs of DC, cats of Capitol Hill. There's, depending on how big your city is, it gets very in depth. And eventually, I've kind of started working on some of those, but that's going to be another very, very in-depth project for me to work on. But those especially are a really, really, really good way to reach local the local pet population. So those will probably, in my opinion, I think that's probably one of the best way to reach your local pet owners. So people will use like dogs of Instagram, like, things like that, but that's not reaching your local pet population. You want to find those local pet tags. Yeah.
Definitely. That makes
sense. Oh, and one more strategy associated with that. If you can find your client's account and stalk their hashtags that they're using, that is one of the best ways you can find some of those tags. Stalking really people's accounts is okay.
It totally is. So, and by the way, was your friend Dr. Erica Barron?
Yeah,
DC?
That's Erica.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I like Erica a lot. I've known her for a long time.
Yeah.
Podcast too, so very cool. So like the posting strategy, I think that has a lot of potential for reach and engagement. And, there's like so many different kind of products within Instagram. Like other than posting, do you think like stories are most important, or IGTV or reels, or like, do you have any kind of insight on what you think is most important when it comes to, figuring that out?
So stories used to be the big thing. And for whatever reason, the opinion seems to be that hashtags aren't working on stories currently. So that is one piece of information. And when I saw that, I kind of looked into it. And can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. It sounded like it cut out again. So I looked into the hashtags, and it seems to me that is correct, that the hashtags and stories aren't working. So stories are still important, and they definitely reach people's accounts seemingly a little bit more than the post, but right now reels are the big thing. And Instagram seems to be rewarding people that are using reels. And I definitely have noticed on my reach that I am definitely rewarded quite a bit when I do reels. With that said, I hate doing reels. So it has been hard to force myself to do them. I don't really like getting in front of the camera. I don't like doing all the dancing stuff. But if you can get yourself to do reels, if you're creative and all that, reels are the popular thing right now that Instagram is definitely rewarding statistically. So
that makes sense.
They will push you out to new populations. Yeah. So that is the hot thing right now.
So when it comes to Instagram,
go ahead. I was going to say, one important thing to know about reels: if you are the type that uses hashtags in your comments, do not do that for reels. They need to go in the post itself. Otherwise, your hashtags won't work.
Cool. That's good to know. And do you suggest hashtags in posts, or just put them in the description?
So I have a stat about that, and this has actually changed what I've been doing recently. So let me go find that one. Okay, so this is a stat that I found. So, and actually, these are from Sprout Social. They have a lot of research about Instagram. So, with hashtags placed in the caption, profiles with under 5,000 followers receive an average of 36% more reach rate per post. And they have a lot more statistics about like bigger accounts, but most of us aren't bigger than 5,000. So if you place it in the caption, 36% more reach rate per post. So I think that's interesting because a lot of us have started moving them down to comments, but it seems like, once again, Instagram seems to possibly reward people who put them in the actual caption. So I did start putting them down into the comments section, and I've actually started moving it back up into the caption.
Very interesting.
I don't know. I don't have any personal opinion if that's worked better. So I don't know. We'll see.
I bet it is. Sprout Social always has really good info on all kinds of stuff. So I'm sure that
it's
based in actual stats. But when it comes to like calls to action for Instagram, in your opinion, do you think having, because that's the other thing, right? Where people will say, well, I just don't know what the ROI is on, X marketing activity. And if you're not making an offer, meaning like you're not saying, hey, we have appointments available, come in and get one, like the likelihood people are going to go out and just say, wow, what a great vet. I'm going to go and do my preventative and my dentals because they had a dental month post, right? Like that's not going to happen. You have to say, do you want to get this product or service? Here's how you get it. Like, so what is your favorite ways to do calls to action in Instagram? Because I think there's a lot of interesting ways that you can.
Yeah, there's a lot of different, the ROI on social media. Like I remember in our marketing classes, they discussed that ROI on social media in general can be difficult. And what will happen with like the company heads is they'll be like, well, social media doesn't have any ROI, and it's hard to track. So you have to kind of decide what is your business goal, and then you have to pick what metrics attached to that business goal to track it. So there's a bunch of different metrics and a bunch of different goals. So if you want to increase sales, for instance, you need to figure out how much revenue are you getting from ads, how much money is a social media channel bringing in. But a different goal would be, are you driving traffic to the website, and how many visitors are coming in from that specific channel? What's the bounce rate? What are the clicks per post? What is your goal? Another goal might be, are you just wanting to build a community? Another goal is just increasing engagement, or are you wanting to build brand awareness? Like there's so many different goals, but you need to be clear from the beginning, what is my goal? So if you're like, hey, I want to schedule more dentals, like you can't just like post one post like, hey, schedule a dental and expect that to work.
Yeah, for sure.
It is a long process. And another statistic that has always stood out in my head, and this has to do with just other industries that they found in other industries, is it takes on average 8 exposures for someone to go ahead and buy something. So that's eight ad exposures. So that would mean you would have to post about dentistry, that specific dental thing, 8 times for someone to go ahead and schedule their dental. And looking back, I always felt like I was being maybe too pushy, or I would just, people would get turned off by things eventually, when in reality, people, they kind of stew on things. They're like, that probably sounds like a good idea, but, I don't really have the money right now. Or, my dog doesn't really need a dental. Or, you don't know the people, you don't know what their issues are. You don't know what's going through people's heads. When I think about that number now, and like when I see an ad on social media, like for instance, I don't know if you saw when I dyed my hair pink. I was thinking about that for a long time, and I kept seeing these ads for this one company over and over and over and over and over again. And eventually, I bought that hair dye. And looking back, like I saw those ads quite a few times before I bought, but I was stewing on it that whole time and thinking about that company. And your veterinary clients very likely might do the same thing. The odds of them buying the very first time you mention something are very low. So you need to put a lot of effort into building them up through what is called the sales funnel, and like warming them up before you actually ask them to buy. So that process is very important. And if you educate yourself about that process, you're going to do a lot better.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I actually was just thinking about that when you're talking about that. I made two recent purchases. One was like a workout system that I bought, and I had been thinking about it. It was a little bit more expensive, so I wasn't like just, I'm going to try it out.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about it and stewed on it, and I kept seeing it, and I was finally like, I think people will stew on it until they make the decision, and then once they make the decision, you have to be there. Like, they've said yes, now you got to make it so. And same thing with another it was a high-priced third-party software that tracks conversions for Facebook conversions. So I have a client that we spend a lot in ad budget, and so I was getting 2 to 3 of these a day, and we were having constant problems with our tracking because of iOS 14, and so like it just got to the point where it was like, I just have to do it. And so it wasn't that it was pushy, it was just like relevant. And so I think there's a difference there, but that makes a lot of sense. And so many people just
the other factor
one time.
Yeah. And one thing that you just mentioned, the other factor that's important is the more expensive it is, what the correlation is, the longer they're going to stew on it. So what one of my favorite classes was consumer behavior, and they addressed this in that class. I learned so much in this class that I wish I would have known before I went out and became a vet. But one of the examples they used is that this is a certain type of decision-making process that they were talking about. But if you go into a gas station and you see the packs of gum sitting there, and you're like, okay, I'm going to buy a stick of gum. How long do you think about that? Like maybe 5 seconds, and you buy a stick of gum or a pack of gum. That's going to cost like $1 or something. But if you're going to go out and buy a car, you're not going to buy a car in 5 seconds. The price difference is huge. So if you think about how much a dental cost, like that's at least several $100s, and it can go up to like over $1,000 depending on the practice, if they need extractions. People are going to think about that a lot longer than buying a pack of gum. So if you are advertising a product or a service, think about it from that perspective too. If you're advertising heartworm, people might not think about it as long as if you're advertising dentistry, which is, I would assume, is going to be much more expensive. 100%. So you might spend a lot more time.
That's really a good point too. And that shortens the funnel too, as far as if you wanted to get people in the door, then you got to make them an offer that's like so easy to say yes to, because it doesn't take a lot of time to figure that out. So getting a trial offer, intro offer that's going to get somebody in the door, I think that's a good point that you bring up there for sure. Well, this has been an awesome conversation, and we've covered so much here. Can you talk a little bit about your hashtag generator that you have, and anywhere else that people can find you and things? I really appreciate the conversation. It's been so interesting.
Thank you. So my hashtag generator, I have been staring at an Excel spreadsheet for, I don't know, months now. I started this about a year ago, and it's just grown since then. Right now, I have collected, I'm looking at it, about 7,600 veterinary hashtags. It started out as me just trying to create my own strategy, but then I was like, you know what, this might be good for other people too. And I am just trying to find as many veterinary hashtags as possible, and then I want to share them with others. So I have, I'm putting them in different categories so that you can just like click an arrow that says, like, if I want like you said, neurology hashtag, if I want hashtags for dogs, if I want hashtags that are like yesterday I was working on like acupuncture hashtags, just all kinds of different ways to categorize them. I think I've got over 100 categories right now. So I'm just trying to make hashtagging a lot more easy, and it's sped up my hashtagging process, because I'm sure you know how much time you can waste on just picking the right ones, and it's definitely made it a lot more effective for me.
Very awesome.
So if anyone is interested in that, you can go to my website, which is thebusinessvet.com, or you can go to my Instagram, and then go to my the link in my bio and sign up for the interest list. I'm hoping this will be done by the end of summer and I can get it out there to people. So I think that's it.
Very cool. And definitely be sure to check out your Instagram at The Business Vet. You have all of your businessvet.com/links to get all of that good stuff too. So, and you also do Clubhouse frequently, which is really fun as well. So tons of stuff. Be sure to go follow Dr. Bolten. And thank you so much for your time and insight today. It was great talking with you.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. If you ever have any questions, comments, or you need help with anything, please let me know. We'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day.